All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third and final day of our sugar-free challenge. We're curious to see, like, if anybody's, I know you guys have been doing some stuff on Facebook, but to see today if anybody, those of you guys who are on the call already, if you've made any of the recipes, if you've noticed a difference even in a day or two of not having sugar, or if you're actually someone who's already given up sugar. We'd love to see anything in the chat if you want to share. And today we are going to share with you all the different types of sugar, the disguises that sugar come in, and also what are the best sugar alternatives. And I'm going to show you a sweet fat bomb recipe today, which I'm not even going to call it a fat bomb. It's just more like a gingerbread candy that's stevia sweetened. So what else are we going to cover today, Caitlin?
And a lot of our tips to kind of, because we talked about it takes about 2 weeks to get over a sugar craving. And so we're going to talk about some of our tips to get you through those periods, because as we know through these past 2 days, sugar is extremely addicting. And so it kind of plays tricks on our mind a little bit. Our body is like, I want that. And so there's some things we can do to kind of help that transition. So we'll be talking about those too.
Yeah, and Caitlin and I have both been there. As I mentioned to you on the first day, like I had to give up sugar for a year, and that included not even letting like one blueberry pass my lips. And that was my choice. You don't have to be that strict, and we're not saying to be that strict, but I had a serious case of candida that was really going to destroy my health. So I got serious about it. So I learned all the tricks, like when you have a sugar craving, what to do. And sometimes you just need to cry. And that's okay too, because sometimes emotions are tied to sugar. And so instead of like, I don't want to feel this, I'm going to eat, you just sit down and journal and cry. And so that's the first tip, but we're not going to get to that till later. So
No, that's a really great one. And we definitely covered this in our 30-day whole food detox program. But the fact, or just the connection that we have with food and like childhood. And so there's a grieving process that can sometimes happen, which we get really into in that program of like, it's okay to grieve those foods. It's okay to grieve sugar. It's okay to write your love note or your goodbye note to sugar, at least for a period of time, and know that yeah, we're so connected with what we eat, especially if we've been doing it our whole lives. It's okay. And Elaina, I love that story you share when, you know, you gave up gluten and you cried, and like, that's okay, because so many emotions we have connected to it, you know, pizza at birthday parties or events. It's more than just about the food. It's so much more connected with our emotions and mindset.
yeah, and I'll actually share that now because we're talking about it and I don't want to forget. So this was back in 1997, and I had a best girlfriend who was from New Zealand, and she had been living in the States and she moved back to New Zealand. And so back then, in the late 90s, we were sending these tiny little tapes back and forth, mailing them back and forth to each other because there was no like Skype or free way to call each other. It would cost like us $100 every time we wanted to call. Like it was ridiculous. So I remember recording with her and sitting on my favorite chair, a little comfy chair, and I just started saying, you know, I gave up gluten and I gave up sugar and I can't. And even at that time, I was already not eating dairy. I was eating like my soy delicious ice creams and stuff. And as I'm telling her about it, I just started bawling and I was grieving it. And it was like I had never really let myself have that emotion because it had been a good month or so, or maybe less, but I was around that time period and just like, wow, I really needed to say this to someone. And it sounds so trivial, like talking to a friend, like I'm giving up sugar. And they're like, yeah, whatever. But it's a real thing. It's a loss in a lot of ways because it's connected to our childhood, like we said before. And like mom always gave us a cookie or took us out for ice cream. Like I remember my mom taking me out when I was feeling sad, and we went to this place called Farrell's and got this. There was this really fun thing called the zoo, and it had all these ice cream with zoo animals on it, little plastic zoo animals. And it was just the two of us, and it was so special to me. So, of course, my memories of ice cream are super special, super sweet, right? And so to give up, say, I'm giving up ice cream, I'm giving up these special treats, and what am I going to do? Like, yeah, I just felt it and I got through it. And now, of course, I feel better than ever and I don't miss it. But yeah, there is a time of grieving and a time of feeling the loss of giving up these foods, and it's totally okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Why don't
Yeah.
we get in before or after you do your demo today? I'm also going to mention our free prizes and everything that we're giving away. So hope you can stay till the end. And why don't we get into the types of sugar that we prefer and maybe ones that we should be avoiding, especially if we're trying to go sugar free.
Okay, well, let's talk about the ones we want to avoid first because I feel like that's like people are like, okay, well, we know white sugar. And so there's something called the glycemic index, and that's a little bit old school now. People are now calling it like carbohydrate load. But back when we first started in this, it was called the glycemic index, and it still exists and it's out there. But you can measure the index of what a food does in your body by its glycemic index. So white sugar is on a scale of anywhere between 65 and 100, depending on the index, because there's more than one out there. So we're just kind of giving you the facts. But it's the highest on the glycemic index. And agave is the next one that's out there. And it's funny, I mentioned this about my agave sugar crashes, but it's funny because it's only a 22 on the glycemic index, which means because it's 85% fructose, and people think, oh, fructose is good for me. It doesn't show the glycemic index to be as high. However, what's happening is it's actually acting a lot like high fructose corn syrup in our body, which is can really spike our insulin levels, even though the glycemic index is low. So don't be fooled by people saying agave is low glycemic, because it's one of those tricky foods. And the problem with agave is because it's so high in fructose, it's actually that and high fructose corn syrup are the two highest things in fructose. And fructose, of all the studies, has been shown to put on the most weight the quickest onto our body, and it's directly contributed to fatty liver disease. It really causes a lot of pressure and stress on the liver. And of all the sweeteners out there, I would say agave is the worst. And most of us hopefully have given up high fructose corn syrup by now. But if you live in the States, if you're going to McDonald's and getting Cokes, and I'm not saying you are, but those are full of high fructose corn syrup. Sodas, they're not even using white sugar in our sodas here, which is a step up from high fructose corn syrup, believe it or not. Like if you had to choose between the two, do not choose high fructose corn syrup. It's really contributing to all the diabetes in children, and those big fat bellies we see on these children directly correlated to high fructose corn syrup and or agave, even though agave is lesser known and it's more expensive. So my bumper sticker saying is, friends don't let friends eat agave. Like, inform people, let them know, like, hey, I know they say this is healthy, but you should Google it or look into it a little bit more because it's not what you think it is. And it also can increase your bad cholesterol levels. So much stuff. I mean, I could go on and on about it. And like I said, huge belly fat accumulation. Who wants that? Nobody I know.
Yeah, so our top three are, of course, white sugar or anything that says cane sugar, agave, and high fructose corn syrup. So a project for this weekend could be look at your ingredient labels in your house, and if any of them have either of those three ingredients, it might be time to toss them. We always say in our 30-day detox programs that you're not a garbage disposal. So if you're afraid of wasting money by throwing them out and instead you eat them, you don't want your body to be the one filtering these foods. Like the trash is much better. So I know that's another mindset. We do a whole lesson on like cleaning out your kitchen and stuff, but maybe just start with those three ingredients. If we know you're here serious about getting off sugar, so those would be our top three. And of course, fake sweeteners. So I'd say those are our top three, but just as important is the fake sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, all the sweeteners.
Xylitol, sorbitol,
Yeah.
and anything ending in etol except for erythritol, which we'll get to in a minute. But anything that's a sugar alcohol that ends in etol, like xylitol, malitol, sorbitol, like you said, the pink and blue envelopes in the coffee shops, no bueno. There's a green one that's the stevia, which we has inulin in it, and we give that a thumbs up. So yeah, any of those atols out there.
And yeah, even though they don't spike blood sugar per se, they're really, really hard on the liver. They are a chemical. And the other one, I think I said sucralose. Anyways, there's so many names for them, but just steer clear of any of those fake sweeteners. Even if you're just wanting to get off sugar and for the blood sugar aspect, there actually has been studies linked to that. Some of these fake sweeteners still can spike your blood sugar. So, and they're just overall not good for the body.
Well, and they also, the side effect is they cause severe, not just a little bit of gastric distress, but severe, as in explosive diarrhea and things you don't want your gut to have to experience. I mean, if that's happening to you, it's probably not the right food for you. Like, hello, body is reacting violently to this food. And of course, we're noticing, like Caitlin said yesterday, we're coming out with a line of products because we're noticing that the sugar-free stuff, like especially if you're in the diabetic section, and you look at the packaging and you see sorbitol, you see malitol, you see dextrose, you see all these are all names for like sugar alternatives that are just cheap, and that's why they use them, and they are not healthy for us. And so steer clear of the sugar-free products unless you're reading it and it has the approved sweeteners, which we really kind of only have three at this point. I don't know if you agree with me on that one, Caitlin, but stevia. And when you're buying stevia, you know, there's a couple kinds of stevia, and one is it'll have something called inulin in it, which is just a fiber. And fiber can be good, and the reason they use it in inulin is because and stevia, sorry, is because it kind of makes the stevia not so concentrated, because stevia is 100 times sweeter than sugar, so you literally need like a tiny little bit. So they'll put inulin in it, so you can use a full teaspoon. But what I notice for me anyway is it does make me gassy when the inulin's in there. But don't take like my body type for being like yours. Test it out for yourself and just pay attention when you're using these things. Like, oh, I'm going to use a little stevia with inulin. Oh, I do feel a little bit of gassy. So, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're just absolutely fine with it because your body needs that extra fiber.
Okay, well, I saw Kristen has a comment. She said, "What was the first one again?" And I think she's referring to what's the first one in our top three sugars to get rid of. And I'd love anyone who feels like testing their knowledge to answer her in the chat. So if you're listening, and yeah, let's hear it. So those are our top three, and then the fake sweeteners, top four of the sweeteners we think you should avoid. Stevia is our number one for the safest. And then some of the other ones are like coconut sugar in moderation. That has quite a low glycemic index, and it's a pretty clean food. It comes from the coconut palm, or coconut nectar is okay. These things in moderation. Maple syrup, again, very natural and high in minerals. So what I like to do with things like maple syrup, if I'm making my own treats, is do like a quarter of what it would say in the recipe of maple syrup, and then boost the sweetness with stevia. So you're still getting a little bit of that flavor, but you're not having a full recipe, like a cup of maple syrup in your chocolate or whatever your recipe is. And then of course, like a raw honey, if you're into that, in moderation, like a half a teaspoon a day in your tea or something. Like we're talking about low amounts of these.
Yeah, because honey, maple syrup, and dates are all 55 on the glycemic index, and even though they have minerals in them and they're a natural sweetener, they can spike your blood sugar. And so, just like you said, Caitlin, just be moderate with it. We call stevia a booster because what we'll do, like you said, is we'll put a little bit of coconut sugar or a little bit of maple syrup in a recipe or a little bit of honey, and then add some stevia to bring it up to that level of sweetness. But the flavor of the honey or the maple syrup or whatever we're using kind of masks the stevia flavor, because some people feel like stevia tastes kind of fake. Even though it's natural and it's from a leaf, it can kind of have that aspartame flavor to it, that fake sweetener taste. So yeah, just and playing around with it. Someone did ask if inulin's from corn, and inulin is basically a vegetable fiber, and definitely corn can be in there, and sometimes it could be GMO corn. So you just have to really pay attention, and that's maybe why my body doesn't do well with inulin. I don't know, but I don't use any fiber fillers in my body because I get so much fiber anyway from my diet.
Yeah, ultimately you would get like a stevia that's just stevia. And I actually had a friend, I love this trick. She had her bottle of maple syrup, and she put a bunch of squirts. She had her own formula, but she put some squirts of stevia in it. So that way, when she was using it, it was already in there, and she would use like a quarter of the amount of her maple syrup, and that was her way of like, not using as much. So I really liked that part. And we can pop in the stevia brands that we love because that might be helpful. Because the reason why stevia has that bitter aftertaste too is because it's a very bitter plant. So that's where that comes from.
And you can use just a tip, and you can type those in now, Caitlin. A tip is that you can use the actual stevia leaf that you can buy from the store, and make your own tea. Like if it's a beverage you're making, make tea out of stevia leaves, like real stevia leaves. And then you just use a little bit of that liquid in your beverage, or if it's a watery, like maybe you're making a pie or something, you can use that as your liquid. And I don't have the ratios on that, but it's just all you chefs out there who follow us and have taken our culinary training, start playing around with like a stevia tea for your sweetener. And this is really, we're encouraging you guys. We're not going to give you every single thing that we do, especially in this 3-day training. Like we don't have time, but like start getting in the kitchen and playing around with things and getting creative. And what you'll notice is that you start getting ideas when you make these candies I'm going to show you today, these sugar-free candies. You're going to get ideas like, ooh, maybe I'll try this in it next time, or maybe I'll try that. And that's the whole point. It spikes your creativity.
Yeah, so I just dropped our 2 favorite stevia recommendations in there. And I still haven't seen anyone answer Kristen on her question, what were our first top 3 sugars that we should avoid if we're trying to go sugar-free. So that's still out there if anyone is
So she
listening
can go back. Yep.
and wants to.
And she can go back and rewatch this.
Yeah, I just wanted
just
to
in the name of time. So we.
All right. Well, do you want to get on to the recipe?
Yeah. Well, Layla did say that she. Let's see. She said she loved the soup, so she made that, which is great. Yay! Thanks for making the soup and the cheese sauce. She said she loved it. I can get on with making the recipe. Did we cover all the sweeteners? Did we talk about monk fruit? We were going to talk about our 3 favorite alternative sweeteners. So we did talk about stevia. And then erythritol is the second one, which can cause gas in some people. Just be careful. Like I use it in super small moderation, like literally a tablespoon in a whole big recipe. And then the other one is something called monk fruit, which comes in a tincture. If you see that a company called Lecanto has a sweetener and they call it monk fruit, it's 95% erythritol with 5% monk fruit. So I feel like it's a little bit of false advertising. So it's really not monk fruit. They just use a tiny bit in there. But you can actually buy monk fruit as its own sweetener and try that, but it has a really strong taste as well. It's kind of mapley, but it's really just, it's not the normal sweetener taste. So you just have to be careful with how much you use. And Kristen says she loves the cheese sauce, and then the nut thins, which I think are the nut-based crackers you recommended the other day. Not sure what those are. Oh, I think those are the almond crackers I was talking about. Okay. Yeah, we did get a response. Did you want to read it, Caitlin, to the answer?
Yeah, so high fructose corn syrup and white sugar or cane sugar.
Yay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to take my camera off for a second while I get ready.
Sounds good. Well, I will chat about some of our top tips. The videos on there. First things first, and what I mentioned, maybe a project for this weekend, is look at your labels. That's a really great one because as we've talked about, there's so many hidden sugars. I mean, it's even in ketchup and a lot of salad dressings. I had a friend who just brought a salad dressing over and she didn't look at the label, and we looked at it and it's like 4 grams of cane sugar per serving. So just really be mindful of labels. I think that's a really great tip to know that you're not going to get hidden sugars. At least look at your labels, and just don't, when you're in the store, that's another practice, is start reading your labels and look for some of these ingredients. You can even have a little cheat sheet if this is really new to you, of maybe the sugars that you want to avoid. And in the notes for this call, I'll be sure to write all of those in there so that you have them, and then like some of those fake sweetener names so that you have.
Okay, I think it's ready.
Sure. I'll just cover one more. And the other one is hidden sugars. So be mindful of not just hidden like cane sugar and stuff in packaged goods, but things like pasteurized milk or potato starch or any white flours. Those are also going to cause that blood sugar spike in the body, and they basically turn into liquid sugar. So pasteurized milk, bread, potato starch, and any other white processed flours are going to be things that you're going to want to stay away from if you're really serious about going sugar free.
Yep. Bagels and white flour can be actually spike your glucose more than sugar can. I mean, it's weird. Everybody's body is different, but just keep that in mind. All right, so here we go. I'm just trying to get all my stuff out of the camera that I don't want in there. Okay, so we are going to make, we call them fat bombs because of keto, but really they're just like freezer candies. And they're both mine and Caitlin's one of our favorites. And they're what I love about them is they're small little bites. So if you just want that sweet treat after a meal, which a lot of us do, you know, maybe you had too much garlic. So garlic and onion can stimulate your sweet tooth. So keep that in mind as well. If you're doing a lot of garlic and you always want sweets, it's that yin yang thing. Your body got all this like pungent stuff and it wants something sweet to balance it out. So I noticed for me, like one of my tricks when I went off sugar that first year was like I eliminated onion and garlic too, because I noticed that it bumped my sweet cravings. And so that happens to a lot of people and you don't even realize. And another trick, because I was going to share a few with you, is I would do the carbonated like Calistoga water, or you can buy these days, make your own carbonated water at home with some lime juice and stevia, or lemon juice and stevia, and that tastes like a soda. You could even put in like a little bit of lemon extract or something like that. And so that's a great trick. And then the third thing that really works for me is a green juice, if you've got green juice already made, or just like a vitamin green or a green powder of some kind. Make sure you read the labels to make sure there's no sugar, because sometimes they add sugar to those too. And then stir that in water and drink it, because usually you just want to be alkalized, and then the sweet craving will go away. Even though it's the last thing you want, like I don't want a green juice, I want a cookie. Drink that green juice first. I promise yourself, if I still have a craving, maybe I can have a bite. So those tricks usually really work for me anyway. Okay, so are we ready to get started? Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is, so you guys have your recipe, hopefully, but I will say it out loud, so if you don't have it in front of you, you can follow along. A half cup of some kind of nut or seed butter. I'm gonna use tahini, and I was warming this up because the oil all rose to the top. So tahini is great with ginger. I love the combination. I'm actually just going to use a spoon and scoop this out because it's not cooperating with me. Sometimes what I'll do is, when it happens like this, is I'll scoop the whole thing out and put it in a food processor to kind of puree it, because a lot of times that's just what happens, is the oil separates from the seed part, or whatever, the paste. So I'm going to use my metric Wonder Cup. I already have a 1/4 cup of sunflower butter in my jar. And so sunflower butter is another nut or seed butter you can use. You can use pumpkin seed butter, you can use almond butter, pecan butter, walnut butter. So many alternatives, so many options. So if you're allergic to something, don't worry, just use a different nut butter. All right, so we're going to put these into our bowl. It totally, altogether, it equals half a cup. And so if they're too solid, you can always warm them up. These I think will be fine. They're going to mix up just fine. I'm just going to have to smear them around. And again, I'm going to comment on using a large bowl, even though it's a small recipe, like it's a small amount of things, because then you have plenty of room for doing what I'm doing, which is like mixing the nut butter together and getting it like kind of ready. The next ingredient is 6 tablespoons of coconut oil. And I already softened this, so I just put it in a hot pot of water and just let the coconut oil melt. And I'm going to go to my 6 tablespoon measurement. So that's what's great about this metric Wonder Cup. We used to sell these, but you can just get these online. You can get these at Bed Bath & Beyond, or find one online. It's called the metric Wonder Cup. So 6 tablespoons, and then I can just push it and clean it out. So if you're using anything sticky, this is a great measuring cup. The next ingredient we have here is now all of our spices. So we're going to use a tablespoon of ginger powder, and you can use fresh grated ginger if you want to. I would peel the ginger and then grate it really well, and you can use a tablespoon or even 2 tablespoons of fresh. But something about the ginger powder reminds me of a gingerbread cookie, that the fresh ginger just doesn't do that. And then the next ingredient is some turmeric, about a teaspoon. This is mainly for color and also for just our anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric. And then we're going to add our stevia in, and Caitlin put the link in. It's called Pure with the Y, P-Y-U-R-E. They have about 4 or 5 kinds of pure stevia. You want to look for the one that's the concentrate. There's nothing else in. It's just stevia sides. That's what it's called, stevia sides. So 1/8 of a teaspoon. It comes with this tiny little scoop, which is usually more than enough. It's a 1/16 of a teaspoon, but this recipe calls for 1/8. So as you can see, a tiny little bit of stevia goes a really long way. At this point, you might want to add a tablespoon of maple syrup or honey or coconut sugar if you want that flavor in there, but I'm completely used to stevia and I like the taste of it. It's not weird to me, so I don't need to add any maple syrup or anything to it. Then the next ingredient, and if you don't like stevia at all and you want to just put coconut sugar in, the recipe would be for 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar. And then we got some salt. Salt's really important in the recipe because it helps bring out the flavors in the sweetness of things. And then some vanilla, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, which is about exactly what's left in there. Some black pepper. I'm just going to put like a little pinch, because as we know, maybe you don't know, but when you buy like a golden milk, it usually comes with ginger, turmeric, and black pepper. And the black pepper kind of what's the word? It like expands the benefits of the turmeric. Something about it in your system. You'll always see black pepper added into a golden milk. So these are almost, you could call them a gingerbread golden milk chocolate if you wanted to. And then the last ingredient that we're going to add, actually 2 more, is this is pretty much done. So it's optional to add these last 2 things. But we have this longevity in a bottle, which is a mushroom blend. I think yours is called Epic Mushroom Blend on your recipe. Any kind of blend of mushrooms. There's another company called Real Mushrooms which sells something called the 5 Defenders, and it's because they're immune boosters. So anytime we get the chance to boost our immune system is good. So it calls for a teaspoon of some kind of medicinal mushroom powder. Another great way to get this into your body. And then I'm going to add in some chocolate chips. These are the Trader Joe's 100% sugar-free, so they're just they're just chocolate. There's no sugar or sweetener of any kind in them, and they just made it into chips, and it's organic as well. So it says you can put up to a half a cup of nuts or seeds. So I'm going to put some chocolate chips, and then I've got, if you're doing nuts or seeds, you want to soak and dehydrate them first. These have been sprouted and then dehydrated, your pumpkin seeds. We teach this in our level 1 culinary training, how to sprout nuts and seeds and how to dehydrate them. And so if you want to know, you can kind of go in there and learn some things. And then a little sprinkle of that. And I'm going to just stir it all up. And I can add more because this looks kind of watery, so I could even add some more pumpkin seeds in. I like crunch in things. So if you're someone who likes crunch, just add as much as you want of these. And you can add almonds or whatever you want in. This actually makes a lot of chocolates. I'm going to use this. What are these? These are like peanut butter cup molds. They look like that, like they're kind of got ridges on them, if you can see that. And that's a really great thing to use. And then you just want to use like a teaspoon or even a tablespoon, just some kind of measuring spoon. And then just start pouring it into the mold. So usually like a half a tablespoon per serving or per candy mold. And all these candy molds are just available online. Just put in candy mold in your search. I know Amazon carries them, but there's a lot of places, like there's candy stores out there. You can get all kinds of molds. I have the heart mold as well, which is really fun. And the one I'm going to show you in a second is a bunch of different kinds of mold. But these I just keep in my freezer. And I just pop them out. Well, I pop them all out and put them in a container. But then whenever I want a little treat, they're just already in the freezer. And what's great about these is you don't have to defrost them. You just bite into them straight from the freezer. So what you'll want to do, I'll finish that later, is have some kind of, this is a small cafeteria tray. Something that you can put them on in the freezer is helpful just so they don't get off balance. And then just put them on a flat shelf in your freezer and they'll literally be done in a couple hours. I made these this morning about 2 hours ago and they're already ready. And I'll just show you what that looks like. I guess I'll do it right on the counter. These are a bunch of different kind of shapes. So I've got circles or half circles. I've got pyramids. And this was only a half a batch. So half a batch is a lot too. If you want to cut this in half, you're totally welcome to, especially if you're not sure if you're going to like it. Cut it in half. Or you could make it without the seasoning and without the flavors. Divide it in half and make 2 different kinds of flavors. Like you could do chai in one half and then this in the other half. So I've got them all popped out. And then I'm just going to put them on this plate. And these are so fun because I can put them on the plate, pop them back in the freezer, and then if I'm having people over, or if I want to just serve some treats, I just pull it straight out of the freezer. But I'll hold it up so you can see all the shapes. We've got hearts, we've got pyramids, we've got half circles. They're super fun.
And they're the perfect little bite-sized treat. This has been a favorite recipe with lots of our clients. So
it is. Well, because it's easy and you don't have to bake it and you don't have to like worry about tempering your chocolate, which a lot of people are like, I don't know how to make chocolate. And so you could even put cacao into this, cacao powder, if you wanted, and make it more like a chocolate. But yeah, we have so many people that are like, those are my favorite. Like when we do our 30-day detox program, this becomes one of people's favorites. Just because you're going off all these things, it's not about not treating yourself. It's just about having the right treats. And it's not about depriving or living this life like a monk. Just enjoy healthier options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely one of our top tips and tricks is it's not about deprivation. It's about satisfaction. And with these high fat, really nourishing recipes that have the added medicinal mushrooms and all of these things that really satisfy us from the inside out. So that I've never felt deprived ever. And I've been on this journey for 10 plus years. You just learn how to make your favorites. And like we even give pizza recipes and just the yummiest pasta and zucchini pasta recipes and salads and breads and other kinds of treats and granolas. And I mean, we cover all the bases. So
yeah, and you're not going to miss anything because you can have it, but you just make it a different way than they're making it in the stores.
Exactly. And Layla says, these look so good already. So if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're here for you. This is our last day of the sugar-free challenge. And I just want to say that if you're part of that Facebook group, we're going to continue being active in there. That group is for everyone anytime that ever has questions, or maybe you can't get to the recipes this weekend, but you'll make them next week. We'd love for you to post them in there. And yeah, just thank you all for coming and joining us live. As part of this challenge, we really want to give a giveaway because I know it's Saturday afternoon. I'm sure it's like springtime and super beautiful there. So we're so happy that you took a few minutes with us this morning. And if you're interested in joining our 30-day detox, we start next Friday and we're going to give 3 people on this call $200 off. I'll pop a discount link in the chat if you're interested in that. Those usually go super fast. So if you don't get those $200 off link, I'm going to also put another $100 off link in there. So we really just want to give you guys discounts for joining us. It's going to be an awesome 30 days. We have a lot of people in there that have been with us from the beginning and they keep rejoining because it's just like the ultimate reset. And again, it's not about deprivation. It's about being a part of a community that's super duper supportive. And, you know, most of us have been where you are, or maybe you felt, you know, you're ready for the change and you felt down about your health. And we have weekly coaching calls so we can really dive deep on some of the challenges that you're going through. And, you know, we cover so much on how to detox really naturally and safely and slowly. This is like a lifelong process that we're here to hold your hand for those 30 days. So.
I totally agree with that. And there's always so much anticipation because I had to do this alone back in 1997. Like everybody thought I was insane. And But then what happened is after a year or two of being this way, of eating well, a lot of my friends who were home birth moms and stuff, I lived in Los Gatos, what are you doing? Can you show me? And like, I started just, I wasn't even trying. I wasn't teaching at that point. Like, I was just an example of other people were like, I want to feel that good. You seem like you feel so good. So it's great now to have a group of people that we can do it together and share it's not just about, I feel great. This is awesome. Like, maybe you're going to have a day where you're like, I feel really bad. I feel sad. I feel crappy. What can I do? I have a headache, because there are sometimes detox symptoms, which we get into in the course. Or, hey, my blood sugar levels keep coming back at this. Is this normal? And like, you can ask us. So it's really fun. And so, yeah, that's why we're doing this. We don't want you to do it alone. And it's so much better in a group, so much better.
Yeah, and we even include weekly recipe classes that you can join live, because it's like we said on day one, we are all about getting you back in your kitchen and putting, your health back into your own hands, and motivating you to get in there, because it can be, for me, like being in the kitchen is a meditation, and there's some hurdles that you have to go through, especially if you're not used to cooking or cooking healthier. And we're here to help you with all that. So our recipe classes each week are so focused on, we pick one recipe per recipe book each week, and we teach that. And then if you have any other recipe questions, like demos just like this. So
Yeah.
yes.
We do a lot of cooking training. And we have a question if you could use a pastry bag for this. Honestly, it's too watery and too chunky. As you saw, like I was just talking to you guys and scooping, it's really easy. Half a tablespoon per thing. And then I use this little scraper thing, and I just even everything out. So it's going to take you longer to wash that pastry bag than it would just to do it this way.
The offset spatula, that's the best tool for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pop this discount link for $200 off the 30-day detox if you're interested. Again, like I said, if you missed those 3 spots, I'm gonna give another $100 discount to some of you. So it's in there now.
We're gonna do some giveaways for everybody that fills out their sheets too.
Yeah.
So
this is just for the people who joined us live today. And again, keep making your recipes this weekend and use that 30-day challenge or that 3-day challenge spreadsheet. And be sure to post your recipes so you can check off your day 1, day 2, day 3. And then we're going to pick some winners from that spreadsheet who are going to get some other discounts and freebies. So it's really an accountability challenge. The prizes are just there to motivate you to do it. But if you don't have Facebook, like I said, you don't need Facebook account. Just be sure to like email me and let me know that you made it, and tell me how it is so I can post your recipe for you.
Exactly. And so yeah, post the photo. So take a photo after. It doesn't have to be like a professional photo. Just post a photo on the Facebook group and say, oh, I liked it, or oh, I would have used this instead of that, or like, oh, I thought it was whatever. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. Like, tell us what you really think, and just enjoy making it, and then know that you can alter it the next time if you want to do it differently.
Exactly.
Yay! Thank you so much for everybody for being here. We love you guys, and we hope we'll see you on our 30-day challenge starting on May 7th.
Yeah, so copy that link if you haven't already before I sign off. That link will go away as soon as we exit out. So if you're interested, make sure you copy it. Like I said, those go pretty fast. So I'm going to pop one more link in there for you for $100 off. And yeah, we'll see you online this weekend, and we'll email you on Monday with our challenge winners.
Sounds good. Okay, have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.